So I want to talk about medications that you might see, you're going to see on TV commercials. Interesting phenomenon where they're advertising pharmaceutical commercials on TV. They do a lot, even cancer drugs, stuff that I don't do. But it's kind of interesting, like where they advertise a kind of a chemotherapy, and it's like, okay, you're going to go into your doctor and say, hey, can you put me on this for my kind of cancer? It's like, well, the doctor probably knows how to treat your cancer. You know, he doesn't really need you to come in and tell them what you saw in a commercial, you know. But there's a lot of medications that I work with that are advertised. So I want to go through some of them here. So one of them is Trintellix. So Trintellix basically is the only name brand SSRI, so the most basic kind of medication, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So basically what it's doing is it's preventing the backflow of serotonin, boosting serotonin forward, you know. So and you know, it has a lot of action serotonin, and more than some of the other SSRIs. It's a good product. It's a good product. And then we have several of the we call the atypical antipsychotic medications. But you're going to see with Rexulti, let's say, Rexulti is the one I work with it a lot. It's a very good medication. They're going to advertise it for major depressive disorder, and they're going to say, well, you add it to an antidepressant to treat major depressive disorder, and that's just not true. It's treating bipolar depression, and people don't want to hear that. Patients don't want to hear that. Doctors sometimes don't want to hear that because they say, I don't want to treat bipolar, I just treat depression, when they don't really know what they're treating. But what they do know is that, oh yeah, when I add this to antidepressant, they get better. So what they're doing is they're missing the fact that it's a more subtle variation of bipolar disorder, so that's why with Rexulti, you're not going to see anything about I call the B word, bipolar disorder word. The same with Vraylar. Vraylar also is advertising for and adding to an antidepressant for major depressive disorder. But, it's interesting, at the lower doses of Rexulti, they talk about major depressive disorder. On the highest dose of Rexulti, they talk about even treating it for schizophrenia. So, which is closer, to the bipolar 1 or the more severe bipolar realm. So it makes no sense that this medication is for regular, we call it major depressive disorder, MDD, which doesn't have the bipolar element to it. So it's kind of false advertising in a way, but those are the ones that are claiming to be antidepressants, and that one is Trintellix, but these two aren't. These are things you add to antidepressants. That's true. And then we have the atypical antipsychotic class, which they advertise as bipolar. And you got Fanapt, you got Caplyda, you got Lybalvi. I think there might be another one too I'm missing, but they do advertise for bipolar disorder, which is good because it's honest. And they're good medications. So the big thing about TV commercials to really watch for is you can't look at the fine print. So you're going to see these commercials, and all of a sudden people are dancing and smiling and all these great pictures of nature and all this stuff, and then you get this litany of negativity. This could cause your arm to fall off. This could cause this could cause sudden death. This could cause, it's so ridiculous of some of the stuff they say. And they go on and on and on. And so what happens is people look at this commercial and say, gosh, I was really interested at the beginning, but man, did you see all the things they say about that medication? Wow, I would never take something like that. That's the problem. The problem is, why do they have to do that? Even though, again, I prescribe all these things for years, okay? All the things they may mention on commercials, I've never seen one thing happen of any of these patients I've seen. And I've seen a lot. And so that's how ridiculous it is for them to mention these things that are maybe they saw something in a rat in an experiment when they were developing the drug, or but you know, and even when it gets to human trials, they're not seeing it. But they have to put all this, and why? Because the government forces them to. The FDA forces companies to put all that negativity out there, and they can't help it. They have to do it. And some people ignore it, which is good. Some people take it seriously, and they're like, I would never that. Are you kidding? And I've seen that in my office. People will come in, and I give them something. Oh, is that the one I saw on TV? And I go, yeah. Oh, you probably did. Oh, no, I want to take that one. I go, why? And they'll say that. They'll say, well, do you hear what they said about it? So how to fight that is tough. I've said this before. These are the sources of information you never want to use when you're trying to get medical information. Number one, the internet. Okay, the internet is full of misinformation, and the thing about the internet is, you know, it's basically you're gonna read the same kind of things they're gonna say on commercials. It's all negativity, and so someone has come to see me and they're already anxious. They probably are anxious. They're depressed. That's all they need to go is look on the internet and read all the negativity and say like, oh gosh, you see all that, and you know, maybe they see a little bit of positive things here and there, but they say, oh, the negative way outweigh the positive. I'm never going to take that. And the problem is there's a lost opportunity there of putting someone. So sometimes I have to put someone on something else that they haven't heard of before because of the damage that was done. And then I have to say sometimes, I go, look, I'm not trying to keep anything from you, but I strongly advise you do not look this up. I said, you have anxiety already. It's just going to make you more anxious. And I explained to them, here's why I'm saying this. And some of them will say, okay, I won't do it. I promise you. Some of them can't help themselves. They'll do it anyway. And the problem is I can say whatever in my office, but when they leave my office, I can only spend so much time with them and try to convince them. And then they go home and they start reading and this, and then they talk themselves out of it. And then they don't get better. So the internet is big. And again, another big one is commercials. Okay, it's the same kind of thing. Getting information from commercials and the internet is pretty much the same thing. You can see the same negative information that's just not true. It's not accurate. It's not balanced information. It's one-sided, way one-sided, with all negativity and no positivity. The second is it sounds funny, but to not get medical advice from family and friends. Now, why? Well, obviously, why? Well, yeah, but my sister is a nurse. She's an RN. Oh, great. Okay, she's very intelligent, that sounds like. Does she prescribe medications? No. Okay. So why would you get advice from your sister nurse? Because she's not a doctor. She's not a clinician. Yeah, but my other sister, or another person says, yeah, but my brother, he's a podiatrist, or no, he's a gastroenterologist, he's a cardiologist, he's a whatever. Okay, does he prescribe psychotropic medications? No. Like, okay, so that's not his training. It's not what he does. He never did the training to do this stuff, like me and other doctors do. So people are going to use these examples about these smart relatives, and they're like, okay, they can be very smart, but if they're not, or I've heard it before. Yeah, but my sister's a psychiatrist. I go, great, good. So is she your psychiatrist? Do you see her? No. I go, okay, well, if you don't see her as a patient, maybe you want to follow the advice of the doctor that you're actually seeing. And I'm sure, you can get advice from your sister, sure. And your sister might have an opinion, and maybe your sister does talk to you and get a history and give her opinion. Okay. That's more valid than the other one, that's for sure. But unless she's going to prescribe medications and be your continuing doctor, then that can not be great either sometimes. And family and friends again, oh, well, don't take that. I did it. I had a bad experience with it. Well, what does that have to do with you? That's that person, and they're not related to you. So what does that have to do with anything? Nothing. So you're going to have people with opinions like, whoa, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put your kid on an ADD medication because that's like speed and that's like meth. So you're going to hear all this ridiculousness from family and friends about their opinions about things. And opinions, are, the old saying, opinions are like a-holes, everyone got one. So it's, that's a dangerous thing to go down that road of the family and friends. The third one is pharmacists. And you would say, well, pharmacists, they know their drugs, right? They have a bunch of drugs all around them all the time. True, but the problem is with them, and if you go to the pharmacy and pick up a medication, you're going to see this thing stuck to it. There's a big, we call it package insert. So it's stuck to the medication, and they're bound by law to give that to every patient. So what do? They take it off and they start unfolding it, and they're like, whoa, what's this thing? What that whole thing is the same thing you're going to see on the internet. So if you want to look so I tell people, you see those things on the bottle, throw it away. Don't even, I said, it's just going to make you anxious for no reason. It's all a bunch of stuff that doesn't apply to you. You got to trust me on that. And so hopefully when I get the trust of a patient, they can kind of, try to ignore some of the noise and ignore some of the opinions. And the same thing too with pharmacists. Some of them, this upsets me. I mean, I've gotten pretty upset with a couple pharmacists, and a couple recently too, about they have these side consultations that they can, and I think that pharmacists sometimes they want to feel more involved rather than just put pills and bottles and follow doctor's orders. I think they get tired of that and they want to do more. And so these side consultations can be probably dangerous. I saw a woman last week, and she was on a combination of, I think it was Prestige and Wellbutrin, like the number one combination I put together. And the pharmacist told her, you know what, that combination could cause what we call serotonin syndrome. I think you should. So the pharmacist told my patient to stop the Prestige and just take the Wellbutrin. And she talked to me a month later, and she said, I'm doing horribly. And I go, what happened? Oh, well, and she told me what happened. I go, and I said, well, why did you? I know I should have called you. I know I should have. And I said, well, especially like you started feeling bad like the second, third day, right? He goes, she goes, yeah. I go, so that's the time you might have say, well, let me call him and find out. So I called the pharmacist and I said, what are you doing? I said, so number one, I said, this whole serotonin syndrome thing, again, this is another thing you're going to see on the internet. It's ridiculous. I haven't seen serotonin syndrome in 33 years of practice. It just doesn't happen unless you get super aggressive way too quickly or you putting 2 or 3 SSRIs together. But I told him, I said, look, Prestige, it does balance serotonin, but Wellbutrin doesn't touch serotonin. I said, so why would you tell the patient that combining these two is going to cause serotonin syndrome? And he had no answer, and he said, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry. He was just so apologetic, and I said, yeah, well, please I told him, I said, try to leave advice to the doctors, okay? Try to leave, prescription advice, and if you're going to tell a patient to change a medication or do something, tell them to check with the doctor. Anyways, he was apologetic and all that. But that's an example of, again, a pharmacist giving medical advice. They're not trained to do that. They're not clinicians. They don't treat patients. It's very inappropriate for them to even think about giving medical advice. And so when you try to get advice from a pharmacist, it's a bad idea. Now, who should you get medical advice? Your doctor. The obvious answer. Why? Well, it's what we do. It's, this is why you came to see me. Are you getting medical advice from anyone else about this topic? Any other doctor? No. Okay, so I'm the only doctor involved in your care with this. So maybe I would be the one. And again, don't want to say it in a way that's too cocky or but it's just obvious. I'm just saying it now like that. But with patients, I'll probably say it a little more gently. But I say, if you have any questions, call me. With my office, I return every phone call same day. I get right back to people. If you have anything, just call me. Don't suffer silently. And if you need something, that's why I'm here. That's my job. And so anyway, a lot of people, when I give them the talk about the medical advice, they do better. They say, okay, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to get advice from the internet anymore. Or some of them have done that. It didn't go well. And so thankfully, that's So basically, with these medications, there's a lot of these new antipsychotic medications. There's so many; it's sometimes hard to keep track of because there's so much going on with them. But the atypical antipsychotics, these are very good medications. Fanapt is has been very good. I mean, they all are good in their own way. I mean, everything has side effects you got to watch for, of course. There's no perfect medication, but there's really, really good ones out there, and these are really good. But again, these are name brand ones that you're going to see on commercials. We got to remember there's a lot of medications that I work with. Most of them actually you're not going to see on commercials because they're generic. And when they're generic, there's no incentive to advertise them anymore because they're not making the money. They're advertising these because they're making a lot of money with these medications. They're very expensive. They're so expensive that most people would never be able to afford them unless insurance covers them. Now with insurance, if the doctor knows how to do it, you can get medications covered. But otherwise, we're talking about, these class of Fanapt, Caplyda, these are probably more than $1,000 a month. Auvelity, about $600 a month or more. Trintellix, maybe $400 or $500 a month. So Rexulti, Vraylar, same thing. We're in the high hundreds to thousands range. So that's why they're doing commercials, because it's a profit. They have a high profit margin, and so not to say that I don't use them, because I do, and sometimes there are advantages of them compared to the generics that are out there. Yeah. So just recap again, the only antidepressant here really is Trintellix. And like I said, it's an SSRI, so it like Lexapro, Zoloft, the other ones, Prozac, etc. And so that's right. The other ones, these are all we call the atypical antipsychotic class. Lybalvi, Caplyda, Vraylar, Rexulti, Fanapt, like I said, Caplyda, Lybalvi. So these are all we call the atypical antipsychotic medication class. So basically what their main focus is suppressing dopamine. So they go to so the other thing, like the antidepressants, move things forward, like Wellbutrin moves. So basically Wellbutrin moves dopamine forward. So it's stimulating, and it stimulates a little bit norepinephrine at the same time. So again, that's Wellbutrin. But what the atypical antipsychotics do is they slow it down. So what they do is they attach to the dopamine side, and they put the brakes on. Now, and this is why I combine Wellbutrin and that class so often, because if we do the Wellbutrin alone, they might get manic. If they're bipolar, they might get too high, and that can be a dangerous state. So sometimes if I only do the antipsychotics, it might slow them down too much, and then they're tired all day. So when I put the Wellbutrin and the antipsychotic together, it's a great mixture. I call it balancing dopamine daytime and nighttime, or 24/7, because the Wellbutrin pushes it forward in the daytime, but when it's time at night to settle down, the other one calms the dopamine down. So it's kind of, we're looking for the balance of dopamine between not too far forward and not too much backward, but that nice even flow, so it's flowing nice and smoothly through the system. And they're all a little bit different. They all have their slight differences, but that's the main action is dopamine antagonism. The problem with some of them, if they're too heavy on the antagonism part, again, it can cause too much fatigue and too flat and a little bit too apathetic. So some of them, like Fanapt, like Caplyda a little bit. I mean, some of the newer ones also boost dopamine a little bit, so they don't. So kind of like what Wellbutrin is doing, is boosting it not always just backward, but a little bit forward, and also a little bit forward on the serotonin site too. So sometimes, but normally what they do is the main action is, like I said, it's dopamine antagonism, but also serotonin antagonism. So it basically does both. It works on antagonizing serotonin. See, in the same thing, if you do that with serotonin, it can maybe little bit depression, fatigue. So that's why when you put an antidepressant in, like an SSRI, let's say, with an atypical, that can be a good mixture because now you got serotonin moving forward, not just backward. And so you want to get that balance with serotonin, that balance with dopamine. And some of them also antagonize norepinephrine, so it also slows down norepinephrine. So again, causing the calming effect. But again, if you do too calm, and again, we don't want tired, we don't want depressed, and so it's really the art of this is learning how to mix them, learning how to dose them, how to titrate, how to perfect the. So what I'm looking for are the results without side effects, and I'm looking for the best results where people say to me, we call it remission, meaning I feel my old self again. I never thought I'd feel this good again. Or, no, I don't think I've ever felt this good, now that I look back. And so a lot of people have terrible, terrible childhood, terrible backgrounds, and they never really had that happy time in their life. Like a lot of people feel, happy childhoods if they have good parents, and happy in their maybe 20s when they're before married and kids, a little more these are more carefree times of life. And so a lot of people say, yeah, I'm back to that time, or I'm better than that even. I don't know. So these are all good answers because that's the goal. The goal is getting every patient of mine like that. And so anyway, that's the deal with commercials. Again, just take it for what they are, but just when you hear all the ridiculousness, just laugh it off and just listen to how ridiculous it sounds. And then you're going to see like why I tell people just ignore it. Don't listen to the noise that they try to do because they can't help it. They don't want to say those things. The government forces them to. With regulations and all this stuff with the ridiculousness of the government. To make companies really scare people, try to scare people away from taking something that could save their lives, that could help their quality of life. So anyway, that's the deal with commercials. And but enjoy the TV show that you're watching, and if you see a pharmaceutical commercial, either look the other way or look and laugh.